when she smirked and said, "So what?" I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I built a data set that destroyed her career, her reputation, and left her with nothing but silence. The October chill settled into our two-story suburban home just outside Boston. Through the window, I could see the leaves turning amber and crimson, a perfect backdrop for what should have been another quiet Friday evening. The takeout curry was getting cold on the dining table, a small indulgence after a long work week. Max, our golden retriever, lay by the front door as usual, his eyes occasionally darting toward it, waiting. I'd noticed this behavior becoming more frequent lately, but dismissed it as nothing significant. 15 years of marriage creates patterns you can read like code. I'm a senior IT security specialist. Patterns are my expertise. I notice when variables change, when data doesn't align, when systems begin to fail. For the past year, our marriage had been running on autopilot, functional on the surface, but increasingly hollow beneath. I adjusted my glasses and took another bite of lukewarm rice. Max has been acting strange lately. Did you notice him waiting by the door every evening? Wonder what's got into him. Tara didn't look up from her wine glass, swirling the deep red liquid with practiced elegance. At 35, she carried herself with the same confidence that had first attracted me to her. Sharp, ambitious, always the most commanding presence in any room. As marketing director at Hargrave & Cole, she'd cultivated a persona that blended charm with calculated precision. "I slept with my boss," she said, casual as discussing the weather. "So what? It was just once." She took another bite of curry, still not looking at me, then sipped her wine. Time slowed. My fork stopped midway to my mouth, suspended in air as the words crystallized in my mind. I focused on her face, not with rage or hurt, but with absolute clarity. In that moment, I understood this wasn't a confession. This was an orchestrated finale. She wanted a reaction, tears, shouting, pleading, anything to confirm she still held power. I didn't ask who, when, or why. Questions would only validate her script, place me in the defensive position she'd planned for me. Instead, fragments of evidence assembled in my mind, her emergency work trips that had increased over the past months, the way her eyes darted away when I casually asked about the new executive, the unfamiliar cologne that sometimes lingered on her jacket when she came home late. The realization swept over me like cold water. She wasn't just cheating. She had grown to disrespect me so completely that she didn't even bother hiding it anymore. I set my knife and fork down with deliberate precision, wiped my mouth with the napkin, and stood up. She looked slightly unsettled by my silence, a brief flicker across her perfect composure. But in seconds, her self-satisfied expression returned, misinterpreting my quiet as defeat. I walked away without a word, closing the chapter of a book she thought she was authoring. As I climbed the stairs, I heard the Netflix theme song playing downstairs, as if nothing had happened. Tara thought she had ended everything with one dismissive sentence and a casual shrug. But what she'd actually done was flip the switch on something she would never be able to control. I didn't slam doors. I didn't yell. Instead, I opened my laptop and began to think like what I truly am, a systems analyst faced with a critical security breach. I settled into my second-floor office, the room Tara mockingly called my outdated tech cave. The soft yellow lamp cast shadows across my worn wooden desk, illuminating the multi-monitor setup that had witnessed countless security protocols I'd developed for Fortune 500 companies. External hard drives lined the shelf in perfect order, and meticulously labeled file folders filled the desk drawers. On the walls hung network security diagrams and contingency plans I'd designed over the years, visual testaments to my professional paranoia. My fingers moved mechanically across the keyboard, logging into my triple encrypted private storage system. 6 months ago, something in my gut had told me to start keeping records. Little inconsistencies in Tara's stories, subtle shifts in her behavior, nothing concrete enough to confront her about, but enough to trigger what my colleagues call my security audit instinct. I pulled up the data I'd been silently gathering, a comprehensive dossier that would make most surveillance experts proud. First, the Slack messages. I scrolled through dozens of exchanges between Tara and Gregory Stanton, her boss. What began as normal work conversations gradually evolved into something else entirely. "The way you looked at me in the elevator made me forget I'm married," one message from Tara read. Gregory's response: "Conference room B is empty after 6 p.m. tomorrow." Next, the notes from Tara's phone, which synchronized to our shared cloud account, an oversight she never bothered to correct. Her team-building appointments coincided perfectly with receipts from the upscale Parkview Inn, charged to her corporate card, but never appearing in her expense reports. I played a brief audio clip captured by the kitchen camera I'd installed during our security system upgrade. Tara's laughter rang clear. "Calvin's too stupid to notice. He thinks I'm at another strategy session." A male voice murmured something unintelligible, followed by more laughter. The GPS history from her phone showed 2 consecutive stops at the Parkview Inn last month, each lasting approximately 3 hours. Her Uber history included late-night rides from Gregory's office building to the same hotel. An internal email from Gregory appeared on screen. "This stays between us." I checked the system logs, confirming Tara had never detected my monitoring. She'd always dismissed my tech expertise as obsolete, a misconception that now worked in my favor. Opening a file labeled Q3 Strategy, I extracted our prenuptial agreement, focusing on Clause 9C regarding infidelity. I made a copy with both signatures and notary seal clearly visible. Next to it, I drafted a declaration of intent to divorce, citing violation of fidelity clause with today's date. I reviewed our financial accounts and investments. With a few keystrokes, I began transferring assets into protected holdings that couldn't be contested. On my desktop, I created a new folder simply labeled Table. Inside, I organized all the evidence-like courses in a meal I was about to serve. Finally, I reached for a black USB drive, the high-security kind I used for my most sensitive client work. As I prepared everything, I realized I felt no pain, no heartbreak, only a cold clarity. This wasn't about emotions anymore. This was about removing malware from a corrupted system. My silence wasn't submission. It was the calculated quiet of someone who already held all the control. I watched the data stream across my screen, each piece of evidence like a chess piece positioned perfectly. Tara thought she delivered the killing move first. She had no idea the real game was just beginning. And this time, I was playing white, making the first real move. I selected a black 64GB USB drive, the same high-security model I used for company security demos. This wasn't about storage capacity, it was about delivering a message. This particular drive, with its military-grade encryption, represented everything Tara had dismissed about my profession and expertise. For the next hour, I meticulously reviewed every piece of data, ensuring nothing was missing and everything was organized with the precision of a prosecutor's case file. It needed to be comprehensive, yet accessible, damning without requiring interpretation. The first file I labeled Message Log. Inside was a chronological compilation of all conversations between Tara and Gregory Stanton, with particularly incriminating exchanges highlighted in red. Each message included timestamps, device information, and network metadata, details Tara wouldn't understand, but would recognize as irrefutable. May 17th, 10:42 p.m. I can still feel you. My husband is upstairs working on his precious security systems. If only he protected our marriage as carefully. June 3rd, 2:17 p.m. Conference room was fun. Let's try your office next time. The second file, Location Tracking, contained 6 months of GPS data from Tara's phone mapped against her work calendar and expense reports. The inconsistencies were color-coded, blue for claimed locations, red for actual ones. Each hotel visit appeared as a bright red dot on the map, lingering for hours at locations she'd never mentioned. The third file contained kitchen audio recordings. I included only the most damning clip, Tara laughing as she told someone on the phone. "Calvin's too stupid to notice. He thinks I'm actually working late." The sound of her chopping vegetables in the background created an eerily domestic backdrop to her betrayal. The fourth file held our prenuptial agreement, with Clause 9C highlighted. Infidelity by either party constitutes grounds for dissolution, with forfeiture of communal asset rights beyond minimum statutory requirements. Below it, Both our signatures and the notary seal stood out in perfect clarity. The final file was my declaration of intent to divorce, already notarized, citing willful violation of Fidelity Clause 9C, with today's date. I wrote a brief note by hand. You always said I was predictable. Simple. No accusations, no emotions, just a statement that would gnaw at her more than any angry outburst. I folded the note carefully and placed it alongside the USB in a plain white envelope. On the outside, I wrote a single word: enjoy. No exclamation point, no flourish, just clean, minimalist finality. At 4:30 a.m., I went downstairs and placed the envelope in the center of the dining table directly in front of Tara's chair, where she always had her morning coffee. I adjusted the chair slightly, angling it toward the envelope like a subtle invitation. Before leaving, I verified our home camera system was functioning perfectly. I wanted to witness her reaction, even if from a distance. That evening, I systematically dismantled every digital connection between us. I revoked Tara's access to all joint banking accounts, changed passwords to email accounts, cloud storage, and even our home Wi-Fi, all the technology she'd mocked me for not keeping current with. I activated advanced protection protocols on our financial assets, transferring emergency funds to my personal trust account. I sent a brief message to my attorney, Ron Levitt. Implementation begins tomorrow morning. Please confirm readiness. His response came seconds later. All documents filed. Green light. At 5:15 a.m., I showered, dressed in my best charcoal suit, packed my laptop and essential documents, and took one last look around the house. Upstairs, Tara slept soundly, unaware that her morning routine would soon become the beginning of her nightmare. Max padded over to me at the door. I knelt down and scratched behind his ears. "Don't worry, buddy. I'll be back for you soon." He seemed to understand, settling back down by the staircase as I quietly closed the front door. Tara always thought devastating blows came with shouting and broken dishes. But soon she would learn that silence kills much more efficiently. After all, you never hear the bullet that ends you, only the ones that miss. At 7:45 a.m., I sat in Ron Levitt's office, sipping bitter black coffee while my phone vibrated repeatedly with calls from Tara Mobile. I placed it face down on the polished mahogany table but deliberately left the sound on. Each vibration was a tremor in Tara's carefully constructed world, and I wanted to feel every one. "You're remarkably calm," Ron observed, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "Most clients in your position would be emotional wrecks." "I processed those emotions 6 months ago," I replied, checking my watch. "She should be opening the envelope right about now." My phone lit up with a text message. "Calvin, what is this? Answer me now." 5 minutes later. "We need to talk. Don't overreact to everything." 10 minutes after that. "I didn't think you had this in you. Please respond." I turned the phone over and pulled up the security app on my tablet. Split-screen footage showed Tara in our kitchen, coffee forgotten as she frantically paced with the USB drive plugged into her laptop. She'd opened the envelope with a smirk, clearly expecting some pathetic attempt at confrontation. That smirk vanished as she clicked through the files. When she reached the audio recording, her own voice mocking me in our kitchen, her face drained of color. Her hand trembled as she opened the prenuptial agreement with the highlighted infidelity clause. "She's trying to call you again," Ron noted as my phone buzzed insistently. "I know." I took another sip of coffee. "She'll try the accounts next." On screen, Tara set down her phone and began typing frantically. I could almost hear her cursing when access-denied messages appeared across her screen. She tried our joint savings, investment portfolio, and even the Netflix account. Locked out of everything. By 8:30, desperation had set in. I watched as she factory reset her phone, thinking it would somehow erase the logged data. She frantically attempted to delete Slack messages that were already archived on my secure server, then cleared browser history related to her meetings with Greg. When that didn't calm her panic, she called Gregory Stanton repeatedly. "She doesn't understand," I said quietly. "Digital footprints aren't erased by deleting browser history." On screen, Tara's face contorted in frustration when Greg's number went straight to voicemail. After her third attempt, A notification appeared on her screen. "You have been blocked by this caller." Ron raised an eyebrow. "You got to him too?" "I didn't have to. Self-preservation is powerful. Greg has a wife, 3 children, and a pending promotion to regional vice president. I merely made him aware that certain information had come to light." I opened my laptop and drafted a simple, anonymous email to Hargrave and Cole's HR and legal departments. The subject line read, "Employee misconduct." The body contained only a secure link and password. No accusations, no emotional language, just access to irrefutable evidence. "Send it," I said, clicking the mouse with finality. Ron whistled softly. "She's going to lose more than you think." I gave a faint smile. "I don't need her to lose everything. I just need her to know she was never in control of anything." My phone buzzed again, this time with a text that read, "I'm deleting everything. This ends now." I laughed softly. This was exactly what I'd expected. Tara had always been so confident in her ability to erase mistakes, to rewrite narratives, to make inconvenient truths disappear. She'd done it countless times throughout our marriage, gaslighting me into believing her version of events. "What's funny?" Ron asked. "She thinks she can clean up this mess like she's deleted compromising texts before. But how do you erase something that's been backed up more times than she's lied to me?" On screen, Tara was frantically typing again, her face a mask of concentration. She didn't realize that with each keystroke, with each desperate attempt to cover her tracks, she was only confirming her guilt to anyone who might later review the logs. "You never delete the original data in a security breach," I explained to Ron. "You isolate it, study it, and then use it to strengthen your defenses. That's what I've been doing for 6 months." I stood up and straightened my tie. "Now it's time for phase 2. "Are you sure you want to proceed this quickly?" Ron asked, concern flickering across his face. "We could draw this out, give her time to make more mistakes." I shook my head. In cybersecurity, once you've identified a breach, you don't wait. You act immediately to contain the damage. Tara is already in damage control mode. It's time to revoke her admin privileges. Permanently. Tuesday morning, 3 days after Tara received the Enjoy envelope, the corporate machine at Hargrave & Cole began its methodical execution. I observed it all remotely, like watching code execute exactly as programmed. Gregory Stanton had effectively vanished from the company landscape. His meetings were canceled without explanation. His internal email temporarily suspended with an automated response citing indefinite personal leave. The office rumor mill churned with speculation, particularly ironic given that Greg had been the frontrunner for the regional vice president position just a week earlier. I knew from my industry contacts that Tara had been trying desperately to reach Greg for 2 days. Each call went unanswered, each message unread. Her digital panic left electronic footprints across the company servers. Footprints that were being carefully tracked by the IT security team that had received my anonymous tip. At precisely 10 a.m., Tara received a summons to Conference Room C. Anyone at Hargrave & Cole knew what that meant. C wasn't just a letter. It stood for confidential or consequences, depending on who you asked. It was where careers ended. The windowless beige room was designed for maximum discomfort. Bright overhead lighting, acoustically deadened walls, and a single table with chairs arranged in interrogation formation. Waiting for Tara were Martha Keller, head of human resources, James Whitfield, legal representative, and a third person, an external attorney, whose name badge was conveniently turned inward. On the table sat a digital recorder, already running, the corporate equivalent of reading someone their rights. "Ms. Ellington, please take a seat," Martha instructed, her voice clinically detached. A thick folder slid across the polished table toward Tara. Inside was a carefully curated selection from the evidence I'd provided. Screenshot captures of messages between her and Greg, including one where she'd written, "The way you look at me in the elevator makes me forget I'm a married woman." Next came printouts of the kitchen audio transcripts, time-stamped and annotated. Following those were surveillance stills from the Parkview Inn, showing them standing closer than colleagues should, their body language unmistakable. And finally, the most damning piece, Greg's email with the subject line, "Keep this between us," and the desperate instruction, "If anything happens, deny everything." These materials were submitted anonymously to the Ethics Committee, Martha explained. "We've verified their authenticity." Tara maintained composure initially, her marketing executive persona sliding into place like armor. "This is clearly a misunderstanding. Greg and I have a close working relationship. Creative teams often develop strong bonds during intensive projects." The three professionals across the table remained expressionless. Then James silently turned to the last page in the folder, Greg's email. "I'd known this would be the breaking point." Tara's carefully maintained expression faltered, her throat visibly tightening. She glanced around the room, searching for a sympathetic face, a potential ally. But the three professionals before her wore the same detached expressions, like scientists observing a particularly disappointing experiment. Martha cleared her throat. "Ms. Ellington, based on the evidence of professional misconduct and potential damage to the company's reputation, your employment contract is hereby terminated, effective immediately. No severance package will be provided as per Section 18.3 of your employment agreement regarding ethical violations." The external lawyer slid termination papers across the table. When Tara began to object, James raised his hand. "I must advise you that anything you say is being recorded and may affect potential litigation. This meeting is strictly procedural." What followed was corporate execution at its most efficient. Two HR representatives escorted Tara to her office to collect personal belongings. Employee access cards were deactivated the moment she stepped into the elevator. Email accounts, database permissions, and even her company's cell phone service, all severed within minutes. As Tara walked down the hallway with a cardboard box of personal items, colleagues averted their eyes or suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. The silence was far more devastating than gossip or accusations. It was professional excommunication happening in real time. Meanwhile, Greg Stanton remained suspended internally, though the company kept this from media attention. Through my connections, I heard he was negotiating to avoid litigation, offering his resignation in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement. His wife had already filed for divorce after receiving an anonymous envelope of her own. I watched via the building's security feed as Tara emerged from the Hargrave and Cole Tower, clutching her box of belongings. A framed award, a potted succulent, a spare pair of heels. She paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the company logo gleaming in the midday sun. In that moment, she looked small, diminished by the looming glass edifice that had been her professional identity. What she didn't realize yet was that this corporate execution was merely the beginning of her collapse. As I closed my laptop, Ron looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You've destroyed her career. Is that enough?" I shook my head slightly. "This isn't about revenge, Ron. It's about consequences. For 15 years, she's acted without them. Now she's experiencing what happens when actions have real-world implications." "And what's next?" he asked. "The divorce papers will be served tomorrow," I replied. "But first, I need to make sure she understands she no longer has a home to return to." At 2:13 a.m. that same night, my phone notification lit up the darkened hotel room. An email from Tara, with the simple lowercase subject, "Please." The message body was a wall of desperate text, phrases like "momentary mistake" and "we can work through this," scattered among promises to change and suggestions for marriage counseling. The final line read, "I've lost my job. Please don't take everything else away." I printed the email and added it to a folder I'd newly created labeled Emotional Manipulation Attempt Number 1. Her predictability was almost disappointing. 2 days later, she called. Her voice had lost its executive polish, replaced by exhaustion and desperation. "Calvin, I need more time at the apartment. I can't find a new place yet. Could I just stay until—" "The lease is in my name," I interrupted calmly. "You have 14 days from receipt of the divorce notification to vacate. That's already generous considering the circumstances." "But where am I supposed to go?" Her voice cracked. "Everything happened so fast. I just need a few more weeks." "Paul in building management knows why you're leaving," I added softly. The silence on the other end was deafening. Paul, who organized the community events Tara had used to build her carefully crafted neighborhood persona. Paul, who managed the email list for the building's residents. Paul, who'd always been polite, but had heard everything through the building's efficient gossip network. Her social standing in the building, constructed through years of carefully orchestrated brunches and charity committees, had collapsed as thoroughly as her career. That night, security footage showed Tara packing her belongings in our apartment. She moved quietly, checking the peephole before opening the door, clearly avoiding neighbors. I watched impassively from my hotel room, feeling nothing but a clinical interest in her efficiency. She left a few items behind: a half-used bottle of perfume in the bathroom, red stilettos in the closet, and our framed photo from Florence propped face down on the dresser. Whether forgotten in haste or left as emotional anchors, I couldn't tell. I didn't touch any of them. The next morning, I simply had all the locks changed and security codes reset. Tara never returned to the apartment. Through casual conversations with neighbors, I learned that rumors about the marketing executive who cheated on her husband had spread throughout the building and nearby blocks. Not with malice, but with that particular blend of sympathy and curiosity that Tara would find unbearable, being talked about rather than to. As I closed the newly locked door to our apartment, I knew Tara wouldn't come back. Not because she couldn't, but because for someone like her, nothing was more painful than being seen at rock bottom. Yet I also knew there would be one final attempt to reach me, and I had my response prepared. A month passed since Tara left our apartment, taking most of her possessions, but leaving behind fragments too insignificant to return for. Those abandoned items, a half-empty perfume bottle, red stilettos, and our Florence photo, seemed like artifacts from someone else's life. I reclaimed our space methodically. First came new security, upgraded locks, enhanced monitoring systems, and biometric access controls. Excessive, perhaps, but comforting. Next, I renovated the physical space, painting the walls a cool slate gray, replacing the living room furniture, and most importantly, installing a new marble dining table where our old wooden one had stood. The stage for both her betrayal and my response. Work at Stratton Systems provided welcome structure. I immersed myself in a major security overhaul for a banking client, working longer hours than necessary but finding satisfaction in building systems that protected what mattered. Sunday morning at 9:40 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from Tara's number. The one I'd deliberately left unblocked, waiting for this moment. Her message read, "Just one coffee. I need to feel human again." I sat in my regular cafe, sipping bitter espresso when it arrived. The timing was impeccable, almost symbolic. Just minutes earlier, I'd received an email from Ron Levitt confirming the divorce was finalized, assets protected, all legal avenues closed. The screen with her plea glowed in my hand. No rush of emotion came, no anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just the clarity I'd maintained since that night at the dining table. I typed my response with deliberate precision. You felt powerful saying, "So what?" That was your moment. This is mine. I blocked her number immediately after sending it, then methodically blocked her email addresses, social media accounts, and every possible digital avenue of contact. As a final measure, I revoked her access to our shared entertainment accounts, Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, erasing the last remaining connections between us. Back home, I opened the folder labeled Emotional Leverage Attempts, containing Tara's increasingly desperate messages from the past month. After verifying my legal protection was complete, I deleted the entire folder permanently. No archives, no backups. Unlike her betrayal, these records served no further purpose. I took down the Florence photo she'd left behind, the one she'd placed face down as some sort of statement. Without looking at it, I dropped it into the trash. On my way out, I arranged for a cleaning service to collect the remaining items she'd abandoned and deliver them to her temporary address, information I'd quietly obtained through Paul from building management. Tara's professional and social collapse was now complete. Beyond losing her job and home, she'd been effectively blacklisted in the financial sector after the Hargrave and Cole scandal. Gregory Stanton, formerly divorced by his wife, had resigned and moved to another state to escape the fallout. The rumors about Tara had spread throughout our former social circle, leading to her systematic exclusion from every event. The cruelest punishment for someone who lived for appearances. One afternoon I stood in my newly arranged kitchen, the cold marble dining table gleaming under recessed lighting. I brewed a cup of coffee and placed it on the spot where the "Enjoy" envelope had once waited. Looking at that space, I realized I felt neither anger nor hatred, just a quiet peace. Max lay by the window, sunlight warming his golden coat. He no longer waited vigilantly by the door. Like me, he'd adapted to our new reality. I opened my digital calendar and marked today with a small green dot, the official reboot of my life without corrupted data. I sent a brief email to Ron. "Thanks for helping me close the previous version. Time to upgrade the system." That evening, I registered for a short course on real estate investment, something I'd always been curious about but never pursued. A new direction, unburdened by old limitations. As the autumn sun cast long shadows across Boston's skyline, I stood by the window, coffee in hand. A slight smile crossed my face as I thought, she ended everything with a casual shrug. I ended it with a period, but that period was an ending for her, and a beginning for me. The system was clean, the security breach was contained, the corrupted files removed, and in their place, a fresh installation with no legacy issues.